This is 11, the Football Manager board game in all its glory. Yes, this is a table hog. Yes, there is a lot going on right here. Yes, I would consider this to be a heavy Euro. But once you understand the basic actions, it's actually quite simple to learn. Now, figuring out what strategy is going to work best for you, I feel like, is where it gets heavy. So let's today talk about how to play 11. Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we are going to talk about how to play 11. There is quite a bit involved in setup in this game, but it's all very straightforward. It's mostly just shuffling a lot of decks and putting out a certain number of cards. So I'm not going to cover setup. It's all covered in the rule book quite easily. But there is a lot going on. It's kind of a fiddly setup. I will admit that. There are a few things that I want to point out regarding setup that hopefully will just make things a little more clear as we discuss how to play the actual game. The first thing is that there's actually two types of players up here at the very top. You have your standard players, okay, and then you have your youngsters. Youngsters are faceless, but on the back side of them, they actually have a face, have a number, more than likely have an upgraded skill. All of these players are going to have like the same position and whatnot, but generally something better on the other side once they're trained. Then the last pile, which is off to the side here, are your veterans. Everybody's going to get a veteran. This is a very small pile. And generally you just get a veteran at the beginning of the game and then that's it. So this pile does not get set out. You don't set out a display of veterans. They're just kind of set them up at the beginning, and they're the old guard you have on your team. Then we have our staff here that you can hire. Below that, we have our sponsors that you can get to pay you money. You will notice that there is a set of staff cards over here that are pink. These ones that are pink that say special on them only can be added to your hand via a specific card. Generally, it's going to be a board meeting card, but they're not. They haven't said specifically that they're only going to come out via board meeting cards. But those you just keep off to the side. You're going to be told to pick out a specific one at the time. You'll notice that all of these three rows each have a set of 3 cards on the right, then a larger division over here. This is very easy to tell on the playmat, but if you're dealing them out yourself without the playmat, you want to make sure that there's this definitive line, because the 2 that you can see on the left are actually not available until they have made it over here, unless you have a specific card. Usually that's going to come from a staff person. So a scout, for example, would allow you to look all and choose from all of these players. Or say an office manager would allow you to choose from all of the staff. And an agent maybe, or not an agent, but somebody who would deal with sponsorships would allow you to choose from all of them. So most of the time, in general, you're only focusing on these 3 cards on the right side of each row, and you only ever get to pick from the top youngster card. And again, they're all pretty much the same, but the back side of them is very different. Okay. Like I said, there is a lot going on here, and some of what you may see is simply the fact that I have set up for scenario 3. So there are a few things different, like for example, these little tokens aren't normally on a board. These tokens have been adjusted based on the board that was I was told to drop these based on this scenario. I also have some additional starting players based on these guys, so don't take all of what you see to heart. All right. The game, it takes place over the series of 6 weeks. Each week, you do the board meeting and resource gathering on Monday. Then you have 3 days to take your actions, and then you have the weekend, which is match day. All right, and that's when you're coming over here. So let's now work through the week, and hopefully that'll cover everything you need to know to play 11. Okay, so every week starts on a Monday when you have your board meeting. Before you do your board meeting, however, you're going to gather your resources based on where they are on this track right here. So the beginning of this week, I would collect 2 euro or money, 4 fans, 3 operational tokens, and 2 fitness tokens. Now I'm going to explain obviously what all these cover, but one thing to point out that's very important: throughout the game you're going to see 2 different types of these symbols. Anytime that a symbol is surrounded by a circle, that means that you are going to raise or lower your spot on this track. Anytime you see the symbols that do not have a circle around them, so they're just floating on their own, that means you should grab an actual token and add it to your general supply. Okay, so we've gathered our resources, and then we're going to go to board meeting. So you draft your board, and some people may like to have their board focus on one particular set or another. In scenario 3, you can see that they have forced me into a board that's very money focused. So you can see the majority of their colors here at the top of their card are yellow. So they're focused on the money. If they were focused on the blue, they'd be focused on the players, the fitness of the players, things like that. And if they had majority of red, they're focused on the fan base. Okay? So that's how you kind of will decide which board members to draft when you do the draft at the beginning of the game. Also, possibly what their bonuses are, what actions you could possibly take, what their features are, things like that may play into that. So another important thing here is these 3 keywords. Feature is a passive effect. It's ongoing. It's always available. So for the example, this one says when the yellow option is chosen, gain 1 additional money. So during the board meeting, here you'll see in a second, if we roll and it ends up being a yellow choice, she would get us an additional money. Here he gives us an action. That's an action that we can take, but it takes up one of our days of the week. And last but not least, bonus happens when you gain the card, whether that be hire a staff person or sign a player, or at the beginning of the game when you bring on a director, you gain that bonus 1 time and then it's done. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, when it's time for a board meeting, you're going to take the top card, and if you're playing with multiple players, everybody gets their own different unique board meeting card. All right, everybody's dealing with different stuff. You're going to flip it over. You can read the flavor text here at the top. But the important thing is here you can see 3 different outcomes based on where you will end up rolling a die. So you have a D6 for each team. So I'm playing as the yellow team. So I would roll this out, and you can see here that it is a 2. So I'm going to look across. This is pretty easy. Yellow for you, yellow for you, yellow for you. So that's how they vote. If they're all, voting a 2, they all vote for the yellow outcome. So we would look at our card here, and it says, it was just an old piece of metal. Let's leave this case to the police. All right, so they feel like that's the cheapest way to go. That's saving their money. But the fans don't like it, so you'd actually have to lose, because it's in a circle, a fan base. But if we had rolled, say, a 4, and here you can see he would have a blue, she would have a blue at 4, she would have a yellow, but majority rules, so it would be 2 for blue and 1 for yellow. We would read the blue outcome, and here it says maybe we should pretend nothing has happened so the fans don't notice. Nothing happens. And then last but not least, this one, if you end up hitting on a 6, it would have to be with these board members. You actually would gain a fan base but lose some money because you hired the private detective. So not every board meeting has great outcomes. Some are various effects of bad outcomes. Some are really good outcomes. Some may let you hire staff. It's a huge variety, and you can see here there's a huge stack of board meeting cards, especially if you have added in some of the expansions. But that is the board meeting. That's all you have to do. Everybody deals with their own card, rolls their die. If you absolutely do not like the roll you have just rolled, you can actually spend a fan base, not a whole production level, but a single fan token. Turn in a token to re-roll a die. Okay? That is board meetings. Now we're going to move on to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each of these 3 days works exactly the same. It basically just means you can take 3 actions before you get to your match play. So let's look at what you can do with those actions. So here we have all of the cards that we laid out during setup. This area up here is called the transfer area. And this is where most of your actions are going to take place. As one of your 3 actions for the week, you can hire a player. That includes players that you have somewhat of a known entity, or you can hire a youngster. Again, we are only focusing on these 3 cards for the most part. So I could hire one of these 3 players here, or a youngster. I could hire a staff, okay, which again, these 3, or I could hire a sponsor. Now there's additional actions, but let's go more into these in more detail. So, hiring a player, to simply hire it, all you have to do is pay the cost here. So he would cost you €2 or 2 money. He's a defender, and then this is telling you that he plays in the defensive zone of the field. You could have a defender who plays up in the offensive zone or in the midfield. But once you take him, you're going to place him next to your little field board to the right of, in this case, the defensive zone. And you're going to keep him on this side until he is trained. Youngster's going to do the same thing. All youngsters cost a single euro, a single money. The players vary in money. Same thing with the staff. Anytime you want to hire a staff, you simply have to pay the cost here, and then you add them to below your kind of resource board, and then they're available for you. So in both of these cases, if you see a bonus, like for example, the steward here had a bonus on him, you would take that immediately. Here, Charles Simpson, a resource manager, as a bonus, you would increase, and again, it's in a circle, so you would increase your production by 1. All right, your facility production. This guy, however, doesn't have a bonus. He just has an action that you can spend on your turn. Then there are sponsor cards. Sponsor cards, you don't have to pay for. They are actually paying you. You just have to decide, how are you going to advertise for them? Are you simply going to give them a shout out during the game? Are you going to put up their advertisement on an ad board, so kind of a permanent thing, or are you going to make them your prime sponsor and wear their jersey? So no matter what, when you want to decide to gain some sponsorship, you just have, again, looking mainly at these 3 cards, you could just pick which one you want, take it, and then you're going to have to decide which one of those 3 options are you going to take. Now, you can only ever have 1 jersey, and once you choose a jersey and set your jersey, then it's locked in. So, that's an important point, but this is going to give you the most benefit. Ad boards, you can have at the beginning of the game up to 2 advertisements displayed, and if you unlock the 3rd ad board, then you can have 3 ad board sponsors. You can have as many shout outs as you want throughout the game. So this is a great way to earn yourself cash, especially early on in the game before you have built up that engine. So if you are going to just do a shout out, you simply would spend that action to say, all right, I'm going to give a shout out to, in this case, it's Frosted Games. They're going to give you 5 money to do so, and you would simply discard it. That's it. If you want to make them an ad board sponsor, you either need to decide, am I going to gain this benefit right here, where in this case it would be 3 money plus 1 money production, or do I want to take the benefit listed here? So this is discard all staff cards from the transfer area, draw 5 new staff cards, and hire any one of them for the normal cost. Some people may feel like that's a better action to take, and they're going to forego the money to be able to take that action. Last but not least, if you take the t-shirt sponsor or the jersey sponsor, you gain whatever benefit this is and whatever benefit is right here. So you actually gain both. So ad board, you get to decide, do you want the top one or the bottom one? Shout out, you only get the top one, and t-shirt, you get both. And that is pretty much it. I'll show you here in a second where those get slotted in when you choose them. That, however, is the majority of the actions you're going to take. The other action that I'll talk about here before we move away from these cards is that you can actually sell a player. So if you want to sell a player, for example here, the agent allows you to take the sell a player action, but you're going to actually get the opportunity, if you use her action to sell a player, you get the opportunity to gain some additional end game victory points. But anytime you can sell a player, and when you do, you're simply going to gain 2 money plus the amount of strength. So how strong is this player? This guy would be a 3, so he would gain you 5 money just by selling him or trading him, however you want to refer to it as, to the other team. So if you are in a tight pinch and you don't see anybody out here that you want to give a shout out to, you could always sell a player. Also, you may have too many players and you can't afford to pay them all in the maintenance phase, so you would get rid of one to cover your bases there. All right, let's now move over to your stadium board, which is where another action can be taken. So here is your stadium board, and one of the actions that you can take on your turn is to upgrade your stadium. Now this is going to give you not only additional spots to, say, earn money during a game, additional spots to put out advertisements. It's also going to give you spots to, upgrade the facilities, which will increase your resource production and give you end game VP. So as an action, you could simply go to any one of these stadium upgrades that are going to be set out during setup, and all of them cost, well, that's upside down, 3 money, and simply add it to your board. Now that could be some additional stands. Let's see if we can find the other ones here. There you go. For every one of these stands that you fill with a fan token during match day, you get as money from the match. So the more stands you have, the more money you can make from a match. Also, once you fill up these 2 ad boards, if you wanted to have a third ad board sponsor, you could simply pay for this one. You'll also notice that each of these comes with some amount of VP. Let's take a look at what else you could add. You could add a practice facility. Let's put the practice facility up here. Now it doesn't matter, all of these fit in any of these spaces, even though they are unique shapes. And you could have multiple, say, practice facilities if you wanted to. The only ones you cannot duplicate are these 3 down here. So you can't have 2 stands 3s, or you can't put an ad board up here or anything like that. These 3 can only go here, and only those 3 can go there. You could also upgrade your lighting. All right, some of these feel like they fit in proper places. So you could upgrade your lighting. That's going to make your fans happy, so you would increase your fan base. Here you're getting 2 end-game VP. Here you're not actually gaining any VP, but this is your merchandise store. In doing so, you would increase your money production by 1. And then last but not least, you could increase your offices, which is going to increase your facility production. So each one of these up here essentially increases your engine. This being a somewhat of an engine builder type of Euro, these will help increase your resource production. The last thing you can choose to do instead of placing out one of these is upgrade your offices in general. So anytime you want to take the build stadium infrastructure action, you could simply pay the amount here listed. So the bottom one is 3, then 5, then 5 again, and then 7 to move this cube up, and then wherever it is at the end of the game, you're going to get those VP, those victory points. And you'll notice that this top one here is worth 15 points, which is the same number of points you could get from winning the league. So if you end up with your token at the top of the league board at the end of the game, you would gain 15 points. But that's not the only way to get 15 points. You could instead focus on your stadium experience and end up with 15 points here. So there are multiple paths to victory in this game. The other thing you're going to do with your stadium board here is this is where you would place your sponsorships. So say you wanted to have Frosted Games be your t-shirt sponsor. This is the side that shows you all your decisions, but this side very handily fits right over here, and now you know that is your t-shirt sponsor. That's what your jersey looks like. And everybody else, you would simply take the card, slide it under your board here until all you see is that, and now you have that advertisement. So you could do like this and like this. So it's a really nice way just to display that you have filled up those spots, but it is very thematic in my opinion. So the last basic action that you can take as one of your 3 actions for the week is an action on a card. These are almost always going to be staff cards, but like we pointed out before, it could also be one of your director cards. I think that covers most of it, but here you'll see that all of these guys have an action that you can take. These 2 guys here each have a bonus that you would have gained when you first hired them, but then that's it. So let's talk about these. Here, this is one of your first trainers that you start the game with one of these guys. As an action, I could train one of my players and place a temporary upgrade on them. So strength upgrade, that's what that means on their player card. So not only are you flipping them over to hopefully their better side, but you also are actually temporarily increasing their strength, whether it's defensive or shooting strength. Here, this guy simply gains you 2 fitness markers, which is important because you need to place a fitness marker on each player that you're going to utilize in the game. Now, you don't need to have 11. This is just for people you have a player card for. We'll talk about all that here in a second. Here, this guy, Scout, allows you to hire any player from the transfer area for normal price and place a upgrade token on them. And this guy allows you to gain any 2 resource markers. When they say markers here, they are referring to, these tokens here. These are, say, facility production tokens. Now, some of you may have noticed that some of these, for example, like this guy here, I could take the hire any player basic action. So why would I ever hire a scout other than the fact that maybe I always want to be able to look to all 5 players that are available? Well, there's something very important that you can do each day of the week. Anytime you have taken your basic action, you may take a second action. So you have the potential to take 6 total actions on your turn, but you have to be able to pay 2 production tokens, 2 production resources, which are these green ones in my hand, per additional action you want to take. And that additional action has to be an action on a card. So, what this scout here, Gurkaron Dylan, what his ability is giving you is that I could go, for example, gain a sponsor as my basic action, as my 1 action, and then if I had 2 production resources, I could spend these to then take his action, use that money to then hire a player. He goes on to my match board, and he's also got a little bit of a bonus. Anytime that you see a symbol like this next to the action, that means you need to pay with that. So here, if we had a fitness token, I could pay that to take this action. I cannot take this action without having paid that fitness token. And if, like we already discussed, I go out as my basic action for, say, Tuesday, and I pay for a sponsor, I get some money. If I then want to take my second bonus action as this, I have to pay my 2 production tokens here and my 1 fitness token in order to take this action. The rest of these guys are, the action is essentially free, but again, you have to pay those production tokens. So that's why these are important. All right. Again, these guys give you the ability to re-roll. They're also going to gain you money during match day. These guys allow you to take those additional actions during a game, and these guys allow you to train your players, allow your players to take actions during the match, and you have to have at least 1 per player that you want to play in the match. But that whole second action thing, or bonus action that you can take, which can only be from a card, is the reason why you want to go out and get a good diversity of staff. Also, it's the reason why you care about the production value or level of this track here. And it's a way for you to turn 3 actions into 6 actions. Now, you're not going to be able to do that right off the bat because you simply won't have enough production going on. But towards the end of the game, you can literally double the amount of actions you can take if you have planned things out correctly. Okay, so we have gone and taken our 3 actions here, and now we have made it to the weekend, which is match day. So we're no longer taking actions. We are resolving a game in as abstract a manner as possible. So this game, again, is a football manager board game, not a, football the game. This is not Trick Shot. This is not Fantasy Brawl, even though I don't even know if that, I don't think Fantasy Brawl is about football. There's something else I was thinking of, but this is not a soccer/football simulator. This is a football manager simulator. So at the end of each week, you're going to resolve a game. Throughout the week, you can take a look at the scouting report here about the team. It's going to give you a little bio on the team, what you think, what your scouts think that they're going to do, and also it tells you their formation. So Middleham here is going to run a 3-4-3, which means they would have a similar lineup as us. 3 people in the back, 4 people in the middle, 3 people in the front. All right. You then can take one of your tactics cards. Everybody gets a basic tactic card at the beginning of the game, and then other abilities, say a staffer card, will allow you to gain an additional tactic cards. All of these you get to keep throughout the game, and you'll see that each one of these gives you a different formation. You can only line up or arrange your tokens based on one of the formations that you can play out of your hand. So at the beginning of the game, it's only going to be one of these. So here we could do a 3-4-3, or we could do a 4-5-1. Well, I think it's pretty good to match up directly to them, so we're going to do a 3-4-3. I would play that down. Then I can rearrange my tokens however I see fit. It's important to note that once this card flips over, we're going to be comparing all of the wingers here and all of the wingers here together. So even though these guys are way up here and these guys are way back here, the wings are like their own zone. And then once you're in the middle, the forwards are separate from the midfielders, who are separate from the defenders. You can only have 1 jersey token per row per wing. So, just gonna be honest with you guys, match day is what 50% of what makes this game a heavy euro. This is easily the most complicated part of the game, and I could see this turning people off. Once you get it though, it moves pretty smoothly. So I can have 1 token here, 1 token here, 1 token here. I could not have this, for example, because that's 2 in the defender row on the right wing. I can have as many as I want in the middle here. So I could do this, leaving nobody over here, but these guys will go, they're going to go up and down, up and down. All right. But this does matter because my formation said 3-4-3. So I have to have 3 people in the back, 4 people in the midfield, and 3 people up front. But again, I could push these guys all in right here. I could pull this guy over here and say this guy over here. And I still have a 3-4-3. All right. But how you set up your players does, your jersey tokens does make a difference. Because once you have flipped this card over, they are locked in. And then you're comparing strengths. So at this point, after you have set up your formation, you're also going to look to your player cards. So these are the ones that you have to be able to place fitness tokens on. So hopefully, come match day, I have 3 fitness tokens to be able to put 1 on each player, activating them for the game. If I cannot put a fitness token on them, they would simply become a basic level 1 strength, either offensive player or defensive player. For the youngsters, that's not that big of a deal, but a lot of times you want your youngsters to play so they gain experience. All right, but you can see they all are going to have just a strength of 1, and they're either going to be defenders or on offense. But this guy, I would hate to lose his, defensive ability here of being a strength 3, because they may have a really tough left winger, and he would be there to stop them. So I would definitely want to put 1 on him. All right. Some players have actions that if you put additional fitness tokens on, would gain you an action. So to play Kazuhiko here, I would have to play 1 just to get him in the game. Then if I played 2 more, he automatically scores me a goal. And that's not even counting me comparing his scoring strength versus the defender in his zone's scoring strength. So he has the opportunity to score you 2 goals. All right. But this is when we're spending all of our blue resources, either to train a player during the week or to put them on the field. Fitness. All right. Once you have assigned your lineup, assigned your players, set your lineup, it's time to flip over this card. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the most fiddly part of the game. Gets easier as time goes by, and I'm going to show you one trick here that makes your life a whole lot easier. So you'll notice here that they have a goalie listed on their card here. That goalie can stop shots a strength of 1 or less, which is nothing, and he can do it twice. They're good for 2 saves at 1 or less. Now, I don't have a goalie listed here because I haven't hired one, but let me just find a goalie. Here, Teixeira, if I hired this goalie, would give me 3 blocks of shots strength 1 or less. Or once he's trained up, he's giving me 2 blocked shots at strength 2 or less. So just for the sake of showing you guys my little trick, I'm going to put him over here and pretend he's on our team. Let's just pretend I put a little token on him. Now, there is no jersey token for goalies on either side. And I'm going to tell you in a minute how they go about stopping goals and how you have to keep track of them, and then I'll tell you my trick. So, right off the bat, this game originally did not have goalies, so you weren't even caring about what a goalie can stop. You were only comparing defensive stats against offensive stats in the 2 wing zones and then in the 3 interior zones. So that's what you would do then, and you can choose how you go about resolving which portion of the field first. My recommendation would be is to pick a pattern that works for you and do it the same way every time. Personally, I do the left wing. I always look at the left wing. Then I always look at the right wing. And then I go from my defensive zone into the midfield. And finally, I resolve my offensive forwards last. So let's look now at how we go about resolving things. Here you can see they have 2 defenders. So they actually have nobody attempting to score on our left side, their right wing side. So this guy here is the only person trying to score on our side. He is a youngster. That's why there's no jersey marker here and no jersey number here. He has a strength shot of 1, So he can shoot at the goal with a strength of 1, but we can see there's a defender here with a defense strength of 3 and another guy with a defense strength of 1. So tie goes to the defender in the entire game. So both of these guys would block his one shot. So we're done here now. Over here, however, we have a guy shooting at a strength of 3 and a guy shooting at a strength of 2. Well, hopefully our scouting report would have told us that their left wingers and left forward were really good. Maybe, maybe not. But you can see we've got actually 3 defenders over here. But what's their strength? Well, this 6 guy does not have a player card, so he's just a basic 1. He's not blocking either one of them. All right, our 7 guy, however, who we put over here in the wings, has a defense strength of 3, so I can say my 7 here, Marty, is going to block him. He's going to take him on, match up with him, and he's going to block this goal. Our last guy here, number 4, he only has a strength of 1, so he's not blocking the 2, but I have a goalie here who can block shots of 2 or less, and he can do it twice. So bam, he actually stops this goal when this guy couldn't. Now, like I said, he's got 2 shots he can block, so does the opposing goalie. How do we keep track of that? Well, they don't really give you away, but this is what I have been doing. I have been taking my D6 and putting it down for my goalie, and here he has 2 saves that he can make, and the opposing goalie, any other D6 from the game, I'm mostly playing solo, he has 2 shots that he can save. So in this instance, I would say, all right, my goalie has made 1 save, so he has 1 save left. Then let's look here in the defensive zone. They have 2 guys trying to score, and unfortunately, I have left myself short. I just have 1 guy running around going, trying to block this shot. So he can block one of them, but the other one's going to get through. Well, my goalie can block that one, so sure. I'll just remove the die entirely. My goalie is now spent. He is not making any more saves the rest of the game. But we're doing pretty good here. So then let's come up here into the midfield. It's a tie game. Very tense. We have 1 guy trying to score with a strength of 1. And I have, oh no, I have no defenders in my midfield because I put my youngster out here. I made that decision. I could have put him in here, but I was worried about the wings. I have no defense in the middle. So this shot's getting through. It's making it all the way to the goalie, and my goalie is spent. Well, bonkers. They have scored 1 goal. This one midfielder here has scored. All right? But then we get to come back and we get to counter. I've got 2 guys trying to score. All right? Both of them are shooting at a strength of 1 because they have no player card over here. So these 2 guys are both shooting at a strength of 1. Well, they have 1 defender who's blocking one of them. All right? So one of them's done. I have 1 more who's going to make it all the way, but he gets to the goalie. The goalie's going to stop him. So that's 1 out of the 2 goalie shots that they can spend. Okay? And then last but not least, we get up here. My number 9 is trying to score, but he's just a strength of 1. You can see these guys would block him. Say, for example, he had a strength of 2, however. Say I had a card with a number 9 on it, had a strength of 2. He was a shooter. So this 9 matched up with this card. It would get past both of these guys. Neither one of them would be able to stop it, and it would make it past the goalie. Even though the goalie still has 1 save left, that save has got to be on a shot of a 1 strength or less. But in this instance, this guy gets blocked, and I would lose the game 1-0. This is going to happen a lot early on in your games because you don't have very much in the terms of player strength. And so everything's a 1 for you. A lot of your shots are going to get blocked, and you may be able to block a lot, but 1 or 2 is always going to make it through. But that is how you go about resolving the match. In this instance, you would go over to the league board, move the Middleham club token up 3 spaces. Yours would not move. And then we're going to roll some other dice. We'll talk about that here in a second. But as well as adjusting the league standings board, you also have to have your match consequences, which is right here. So after the game has resolved, you're going to roll out your d6, and whether you've won or lost or tied, you do whatever the pips say. So in this case, I lost. I rolled a 5 though, so that's still good. I can put a temporary strength increase on any player of my choice. If I had won and rolled a 5, I could have instantly trained a player of my choice. Or if I had rolled a 6, I instantly would have gained a fan base production. But you can see down here, if you roll in the 1s, that's bad, and you're going to start gaining injury tokens to have to play on your players. They become injured unless you have a doctor on your staff. They're not going to be able to play in the next game. But this is very straightforward. Again, you're looking at the number you just rolled and then compare it to whether you won, lost, or tied. And so even if you win, some of your guys could still get injured if you roll poorly. But as always, anytime you roll a die in this game, if you want to spend a single fan token, you can re-roll the die. At the conclusion of every match, there are a few things that you need to take care of, and the biggest one is managing the league board. So this is going to help determine where you stand amongst all the other teams, and since you only play one team a week, you need to randomly determine how these other teams played out. So let's just pretend here, let's find Middleham. All right, and we lost to Middleham, correct? So our marker, which is this yellow one here, is going to stay on the 0 spot because we lost. But Middleham won, so they're going to get 3 points for a win. If we had tied, we would have both gotten 1 and been like that. So that's pretty straightforward. You move, and you move your opponent's marker, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 0 points for a loss. But what about all these other guys who are just computer-generated opponents who we assume either played each other or played anyone else in the league? Well, that's where these 3 dice come in. There's 1 die for each color of type of team. So you can see Middleham here, we would have rolled a blue die. We're not going to roll the die for them because we know what their match was. But we need to roll for Dafton United, and we need to roll for these 2 green teams and these 2 red teams. Now, why? You're going to roll for each team separately, and you're going to roll the die corresponding to that team. So why, do you ask? Do you even bother with 3 different colored dice if you're rolling each one individually? Well, that's because these are not just standard dice. They only have 0, 1, or 3 on them. And, for example, the red dice has 3 sides with a 3 on it. The red teams generally perform better than I think it's the green teams only have 1 side with a 3 on it, so 1 in 6 chance of winning, and blue only has a 2 in 6 chance of winning. So these dice are different, so make sure you're rolling the die corresponding to whatever color the token is. Each token also has a black side on the back. This is, no matter what color they are, this is for if you are playing in a multiplayer game and 2 human players happen to both say, in the random mixture of opponents at the beginning of the game, if both of you played Middleham in 1 week, to not have to keep you from reshuffling your deck or making sure too much. Technically, 2 players can each play the same team in a week. What you would do, say Middleham beat both of you. All right, so both of you would stay here on the 0 track. Middleham would actually get 6 points for 2 wins. You're going to flip this token over to its black side. That way you know next time, unless Middleham actually plays someone, you don't roll for him. Instead of rolling for him, you would just flip him back over. This is explained in the rule book, and it makes sense when you're playing. That way, since Middleham got credit for playing 2 games, they skip a game next week. It's like they're on a bye. But you would simply say, all right, just take your green die. BFC did not win either, and Cornfield had a draw. And then you would say, all right, Dafton United actually won, so they would come up here. We'll do that. And then my 2 red teams here, SFC and Downton won. So that would be an example of what your league board would look like after the first week. Again, if you had won or beaten Middleham, maybe it would have looked like this, and Middleham would have been stuck back here. So again, you roll the colored die coordinating to the color of the front of the chip, and you roll the die one time for each team. And that's going to give you your league setup during the game. The last thing you need to do before you finish out a week is to pay your maintenance costs. So, running a football team, it costs to keep a stadium going. You have to pay your players and you have to pay your staff. So all of that is represented by this little portion of your board, director's board. Hopefully during the game you acquired some fan resources and you placed them in the stands like so. This would be playing to a sold out stadium, so some card effects say if you play to a sold out stadium you get this bonus, yada yada. But after the game you can remove these tokens and get in place 1 money for each fan token you placed into the stands. All right, this is going to give you a little bit of income after the match or for the match. And then you need to look here on your maintenance board. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to start with 2 players. You always get a youngster and a veteran, but I actually have 2 youngsters. And even if we include that goalie, I now have 4 players. My stadium infrastructures, right now, I have, all of them, so I have 8 plus. But at the beginning of the game, if you remove all these, you still have 1, 2, 3, 4 stadium infrastructures. You have 2 stands pre-built and 2 ad boards pre-built. So that's why you can see the little 4. It's hard to tell, but it's outlined in blue. That's where your token's always going to start. Just like the players is always at 2 and staff is at 1, because you get a first trainer card. All right. So let's just say this is where we're at, or we could say even that we built our 2 stands. Since we got 4 money for playing to a sold out stadium. So this is where our setup is. And you will adjust these markers as you hire staff, hire players, or if you sell a player, you would reduce it. Generally, you're not going to sell stadium structures or sell fire staff. So this one will just go up and stay up. But this one could go up or down. If you are in the green, it's going to cost you 1 money for that particular column. If you're in the yellow, it's going to cost you 2 money. And if you're in the red, it's going to cost you 3 money. So in this setup right here with 4 players and 6 stadium infrastructures and just 1 staff, I'm looking at 2, 4, 5 money at the end of the game that I have to, or at the end of the week that I have to pay. Well, I acquired 4 from being in the stands. Hopefully I paid attention, looked ahead, and kept 1 behind to be able to pay this total amount. But say I was short. Say I didn't have the money to pay my maintenance cost. I didn't pay attention. Well, for every 1 money that you're short, you have to take 2 of these penalty tokens. And this represents players and or staff who are they've received essentially a yellow or a red card. They cannot be used in the next round. So you're going to place 2 of these out. You get to choose. Most people place them on their staff, and that just means that the staff's action cannot be taken next round. So next week when you're going through, you could not use this first trainer. This token sits there, and then at the beginning of the match, it always tells you one of the instructions is to remove these 1 off of each person. So you could actually end up stacking multiple on a staffer if you did really bad and lose him or her for multiple weeks. Now, when you're placing those out on staff, you cannot place them. You have to place 1 onto a staff member that doesn't already have 1. You couldn't just pile all of your penalty tokens onto your first trainer and just say, all right, I'm going to lose him for the rest of the game. If your first trainer already has 1 and other staff members do not, you have to choose one of the other staff members. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to conclude everything for a week. Again, you do this 6 times. Your timer for the game is the 6 opponent cards on your board. So this is how you keep track of how many rounds you've played and how many rounds you have left in the game. 6 rounds representing 6 weeks. Monday is always a board meeting. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday represents the 3 actions you can take, plus possibly an additional bonus action, so up to 6. And then your weekend is your match day. Once you've resolved your post-match responsibilities, you would pass the first player token if you're playing multiplayer, and you would start it all back over again with resource collection, then a board meeting, and so on. One last thing I'm going to cover is some frequently asked questions that I have found the answers to mainly on Board Game Geek, and I'm going to put a link in the description below to the they say it's unofficial, but it's being developed by the designers, so I would say it's pretty official. But an unofficial FAQ on Board Game Geek that answers a ton of people's questions. This game does have its complications, so people have had a lot of questions, but those are being answered. So have no fear. If you have a question, check out that FAQ first, or you can always leave me a question in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer it. But these are some questions that I had as I was learning how to play the game. The first one being, anytime a trainer says player, train one of your players, because there are some other, and I don't see one out right now, but there are some other staff who specifically say train a youngster. So those people can only flip over your youngster cards here. But anytime a trainer says train one of your players, that can be your well, no, I don't think it can be your veteran. It can be your regular players or your youngsters. So have no fear. This does not mean only the players, like your standard players here. It could be anybody. Also, jersey markers here. When you start the game, during setup, it tells you to basically place markers 2 through 11 out on the board and flip over the lower half. But then you're also going to put in a blank jersey for each of your youngsters. So at the beginning of the setup, you're going to have, generally one per youngster and then hopefully one per veteran, but your veteran may have a number higher than 11, so you would have 2. Either way, I just talked myself in a circle there, but either way, you're going to have 5 defenders and 5 scoring players when you start a game of 11. If you purchase a player, hire a player who, say number 7 here, was like this, and you hire him now and he flips it to a defensive side, that stays like that, and your ratio can stay 6-4 in this case. That's the only time, other than certain card effects, that you flip jersey markers, is when you hire a player, bring them in, and flip their jersey marker accordingly. Remember, you can only play with one player per jersey marker, so I could not have 2 number 7s in a match. I could have them on my team, but I would only be able to start and assign to a match one of them per week. But so there is a way to get out of that 5-5 or 50% ratio where 50% of your team is defending, 50% is attacking, but generally you're only doing that by hiring the players to flip the jersey marker. Again, there are some card effects that would switch that, but otherwise you can't just sit here and say, all right, today I'm going to play all offense and I got to keep number 7 here as defense, but everybody else is going full ham. I guess this guy would be defense. Full ham offense. And I'm just going to try and score as many points as possible. You can't do that. That would be gaming the system. You have to kind of hire your way into changing that ratio. The last thing that I found interesting, and I wasn't even looking for, but something I had noticed, is this your bonus stadium infrastructure of essentially a store. So this is like your gift shop that you would add to your stadium. It's going to give you an increase of 1 money production per week. Okay, seems pretty good, right? But if you think about it, even right off the bat, if this is the only infrastructure that you purchase, getting this one, it's going to push this up into 1, and now all of a sudden, instead of paying 1 per week, you're paying 2 per week. So you've increased your maintenance costs 1 per week, and you're gaining 1 per week. So essentially, it's a wash. Why would you ever buy this? It doesn't give you VP like the other ones do, and you are having to bite that increase in production during your maintenance fee. So for me, after a while, I was like, well, why would I purchase this? This seems like a useless upgrade. And I think the designers have decided, wait, you're right. you know, we could have done better with this tile. So they have, in the unofficial FAQ, said house rule this to say that this shop, instead of just one per week or increasing this one per week, that you actually are going to get at the beginning of the week half of what your fan base is. So in this instance, my fan base is 4, so I would get 2 money this week. Now, if my fan base dropped, I'd have less people to come to my store, and here I would only get 1 per week. So take what your fan base is, if you have built the shop, and gain during the production phase money, just money tokens, not money production, equal to half of what your fan base production level is. Makes sense to me. Hopefully that makes sense to you. You don't have to house rule this, but this is kind of a house rule that the designers have even said, you know what, you're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense. If there's ever like a 2.0 rules or something like that, they may house rule it. I doubt they'll completely remake these tokens, but maybe there'll be a second printing. Who knows? But that was the last one that I was like, had a big aha moment. That's, you know, a nice change that they have implemented already. So again, check out the FAQ link below. That'll answer a lot of your questions. If you have any questions about my video specifically, please ask them in the comment section below. If I realize that I have made any mistakes, I will leave Klingon subtitles, so be sure to go back and turn those on if you haven't watched it like that already. And you know, if you found that I did make a mistake, please feel free to let me know in a polite manner in the comment section below. I'm always happy to learn, you know, how to improve my game as well. So that's going to do it for my how to play video of 11. I know this has gone on a long time. This is a complicated game, but in my opinion, it does have a lot of theme. I enjoyed that it's not this like very dry economic based Euro, especially with the World Cup having just happened. Definitely, you know, into the soccer theme right now. So for right now, I'm going to recommend this one. My review of this game will be coming out soon, but I'm going to give it some more plays to determine whether it's worth it or not. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.